Everyone in their life has experienced one moment they wish they could just redo, a decision, mistake, or a missed opportunity. It might stay stuck with you for months or even years, haunting you for the rest of your life, as you are left stuck with your regrets, wishing there was a way you could have changed things or start all over. But what if you could? What if you could rewrite the pages to your story? What if you had a second chance at life? Imagine starting back from zero. Would you want to restart? Well, that is what isekai is all about. Getting transported, reincarnated, or even a virtual world all revolve around the isekai genre. After the release of Sword Art Online, isekai exploded in popularity, and boy is there a ton of them nowadays, to the point where a lot of them are just generic slop which feels like it's just made for money. They're all the same basic isekai but with one thing different, like being transported with a smartphone, or being reborn as a sword, or even a vending machine. They're all supposed to make you feel intrigued by the uniqueness, but realize everything else about the story sucks, and the overpowered main character with a female harem is an extremely popular trope. Not all isekai is bad though. There's a lot of amazing isekai out there. The problem is that there's so much out there, so most of it feels very surface level, which makes it seem like all isekai anime sucks, which is far from true. Besides, being transported to a fantasy world where you could be an adventurer sounds absolutely awesome. It's why people love the genre, including myself. Re:Zero and Mushoku Tensei are both really well written isekais that depict the idea of starting all over again differently. For starters, one is reincarnation and the other is transportation. What's great about Re:Zero is how they show the consequences for being able to start all over. Natsuki Subaru was a shut-in NEET that would spend most of his time playing video games, until one day he is transported to another world with no explanation. At first, he gets excited and wonders what cool powers he must have. After all, he was summoned, so he must have some powers or abilities, but soon enough he realizes he doesn't have anything special. No powers or no magic girl that was responsible for summoning him. Or so he thought. Subaru finds out he has an ability called Return by Death, letting him die and go back to a certain checkpoint. This happens several times throughout Re:Zero and is what sets up the conflict and plot. It's a really great ability, since he can retry as much as he wants, letting him redo all the mistakes he makes. The problem about it though is that it doesn't solve everything. Every time Subaru thinks of a solution to a problem, another problem emerges, which raises the question, what if you rewrite your life and make mistakes and regrets again? That's what is shown in Re:Zero constantly. He can start from zero again, yet still fails and ends up with regret. It's never easy for Subaru to get the ideal life he wants, and at times he has to make sacrifices. One perfect example is in Arc 3. Subaru was in the royal capital after being treated for his wounds against his fight with Julius. When he returns to the Roswell mansion, everyone is killed by the witch cult. His solution is to get help from Krush and her camp. He lets everyone know that the witch cult will kill everyone in Amelia's camp, but they don't believe him and find him suspicious in fact. So he decides to head to the mansion himself, but runs into the white whale killing Rem. This happens over and over again until he finally solves the problem. The anime shows that it is possible to change the future without giving up, but it comes at the cost of pain and suffering, and most of all, your well-being. And also, think of it this way. If you could redo everything, literally everything, after doing that over and over again, you will never reach that perfect life. Because after every minor inconvenience, you could just go back and redo things. You'll become wrapped up in what even is the ideal life you want, which will ruin your mental health and fulfillment. That's exactly what happens in the Greed If route, where Subaru accepts Echidna's contract, dying over 100 million times over the smallest things to make everything perfect. So let me ask you now, would you go through all that to get that ideal world? I don't think it's a simple yes or no answer. There's always times when I wish I could go back and change something, but at the same time, I think of it as a way to grow from my past self, and that's what Mushoku Tensei displays. Rudeus Greyrat had a similar lifestyle to Subaru before he was reincarnated, but the difference is that Rudeus lived his whole teenage to adulthood life as a shut-in NEET, while Subaru was only a teenager. Rudeus stopped taking care of himself and let himself rot away in his room. He dropped out of school due to extreme bullying, which honestly ruined his life. But after he gets kicked out of his house and on the streets, he notices a group of high schoolers about to get hit by a truck. He gains the sudden urge to run in and push them away from their fate, which leads to him getting hit and dying. It's pretty sad how his life ended. He achieved nothing noteworthy and now it was all over. But lucky for him, he gets reincarnated into a fantasy world with a whole new look, family, and life. Something he thought was completely impossible came to reality. Rudeus uses this second chance at life to make the most of it and be the best he can be. But it's only because of how his past life was like that makes it possible for him to obtain his new outlook on life. A big problem people point out about isekais is that once the main character is transported to a new world, they completely forget about their past life. But that isn't the case at all in Mushoku Tensei. In one of the first few episodes, Rudeus was afraid to leave his home for the first time with Roxy, because it reminded him of how everyone treated him in high school in his old life. He was afraid if he left, people would look at him the same. But after Roxy shows Rudeus around, he realizes there's nothing to worry about. What I also think this anime does really well is displaying change. Rudeus is a very controversial character for understandable reasons, especially his views on women and underage girls. But that's the point. He's supposed to be a degenerate character. I'm not saying to forgive him for everything he's done, but to understand that he's always learning to be a good person, and most of all, forgive himself. If you can forgive yourself for your past actions, then that's how it is possible to let go of the past mistakes and look forward to the future. Rudeus does change for the better as the seasons go on. He still makes mistakes here and there, but that is human nature. He isn't perfect. He's a flawed character, and that's a good thing because it's realistic. Humans aren't perfect, and we're constantly learning as we go through life. One great example is in season 2. Spoiler warning, heads up. During the Labyrinth arc, Rudeus along with Roxy and Paul's group explore a dungeon to rescue his mom Zenith. Paul dies in the process, causing Rudeus to fall into a depressive state and blames himself for Paul's death, as well as having thoughts of feeling like a fake son since he was reincarnated and never looked at Paul as his actual father. Roxy takes advantage of Rudeus' state of mind, but also tries to help him at the same time. She ends up sleeping with Rudeus, causing him to cheat on his wife Sylphie. He ends up realizing he's in love with Roxy as well as Sylphie, making him stuck in a dilemma and feeling ashamed for what he has done. When he arrives back home, he doesn't lie or try to hide his mistake. He tells Sylphie the news and owns up to his mistake. Keep in mind, at this point in the story, Rudeus has changed a lot since the start of the anime and has become a much better person, but even still, he made a mistake. He isn't perfect, but he's trying his best and owning up to his mistakes as I've stated earlier. Notice how even though Subaru and Rudeus are able to restart life, it doesn't inherently fix anything. They both carry what they had in their previous life into their new world. Yeah, they have a new life, but they are still the same people with the same problems and struggles. It takes a lot of dedication and self-reflection to really obtain that ideal life in self. So even if you obtain that second chance, to make it count takes work and growth. I personally believe it's okay to go through regret, even if you don't want to. Yeah, I firmly believe in living your life to the fullest to not end up with regrets, but even still, it's a natural feeling to go through no matter how much you try to avoid it. That's why it's such a wonderful thing that we can't start over. We have one life, so we have to make it count. Subaru and Rudeus realized this once they were granted a second chance. There isn't a third chance coming. This is all they've got. And for that, they strive to be their best, so for when they reach the end of the road, they'll be happy with what they have achieved in their life. It's good to go through failure and regret, even over and over again, because it teaches us lessons. If you were able to just restart and forget about the past, you will only make the same mistakes again and wish to restart once more. That is shown constantly in Re:Zero and Mushoku Tensei. They are both isekai with different stories at the end of the day, but they both share similar messages. So instead of rewriting your story, don't. Don't go back and edit your previous chapters. Focus on the present and future, because the past doesn't matter all that much. What matters is what you'll do now, and what you'll write further in the story of your life. Thank you for watching. If you've made it till the end, thank you for sticking around. Last video did so well. 10,000 views is absolutely insane. And I already passed 100 subscribers, and that was my goal to reach at the end of the year. Thank you all, really. I hope you continue to watch these sort of videos. If you have any thoughts or disagreements, let me know in the comments. I read every single comment and reply to some as well. But anyways, keep watching anime, subscribe if you want to see more, and Adachi out.